Hey everyone, Harris O'Malley from DrNerdLove.com, brought to you by my generous patrons at patreon.com/DrNerdLove. So this week, look, I'm just going to apologize, but we're going to be starting on something of a somber note. If you're a regular reader of Paging Dr. Nerdlove or you follow me on Twitter, then you know that last week a very dear friend of mine, Bert Belasco, passed away suddenly and without warning. Bert was an up-and-coming actor. He starred in the show Let's Stay Together, as well as appearing in a number of different shows like Pitch, House, Justified, Key and Peele, and a whole host of others. We still don't know what happened other than it seemed like it was an aneurysm and it hit out of the clear blue sky. Needless to say, that threw me for a serious goddamn loop. Losing a friend like that, especially with no warning, is really painful. And it's still hard to wrap my head around it. Now, I wrote a lot about my feelings and the weirdness about grief over on the blog. And if you want to check it out, you can hit the thing or check the link in the show notes. But this week, for this episode, I don't want to talk about loss. Instead, I want to talk a little bit about Bert and what made him special. In a very real way, he was a brother to me. And honestly, I think one of the best ways to remember him, to memorialize him, is to encourage more people to be more like him. Because quite frankly, he was kind of amazing. He was one of those people who made friends the way that other people breathe. He networked like it was just the most natural thing in the world. And it wasn't in some Hollywood-esque networking, what can you do for me kind of way that you see so often from a lot of folks in the film and television industry. He was completely natural and unaffected. He was charming in a way that very few other people were, but he was also exactly who he appeared to be. He radiated charisma like some sort of social networking Chernobyl, but he was also someone who was exactly as he appeared to be, loving, friendly, open, and down to earth. And that was precisely what drew so many people to him and why he was so incredibly popular and absolutely beloved by his friends and family. And frankly, I think the world could use more people like that. And especially since, gonna be real with you, clickbait titles help bring in the eyeballs. Here is what I learned from Bert about how to be genuinely charming, incredibly charismatic and magnetic, and amazingly popular without even trying. One of the first things that stood out about Bert is that when he met you, he wanted to know everything about you. And he was not just being polite. He was genuinely fascinated by people and always wanted to know more about them. In fact, he didn't want to be the center of attention or to have the focus on him and what he was up to. He wanted to know about other people, what you were up to, what did you think? He preferred to share the love and the spotlight, and to spread the attention around instead of having it all directed at him. Now, this is a rare quality to find in general, and especially in Hollywood, and it really made him stand out. It was also a key part about why people found him to be so magnetic. People love to talk all about themselves. We are, more often than not, our own favorite topic. In fact, studies have found that we like talking about ourselves more than we like food or money. But that means other people like talking about themselves too, which is why, more often than not, we find that when we're talking to someone, they're not listening so much as waiting for their turn to talk. It is very, very rare that we find someone who is genuinely interested in what we have to say. When we give someone else a chance to talk and really, really listen to them and show interest in what they think, then we're giving them a gift. It makes them feel special and appreciated. That, in turn, makes them feel good. And they associate those good feelings with us, which means that they're going to prioritize relationships with us. However, it's important to keep in mind, part of what makes people like Bert so magnetic wasn't that he was ready to just sit there and listen to your life story. He was an active participant in the conversation, not just sitting there with an interested look on his face and making noises at appropriate intervals. He wasn't passively listening. He was paying attention, asking insightful questions, wanting to know more. And he wanted you to know that he thought that you were fascinating. In fact, that leads me to my next point. So I know a lot of you watching this deal with some form of social anxiety. And the most common version of this is the understandable worry that, hey, maybe you're annoying people, or maybe you're boring them, or that they don't actually like you that much. God knows I feel that way at times, especially with new friends or when I am meeting and interacting with people that I admire. That was never a problem with Bert. You always knew exactly where you stood with him because he wanted you to know that he thought you were awesome. And he took the easiest and frankly most welcome way of letting you know this. He demonstrated through his words and his actions. Now, the most obvious way to do this is also the most incredibly straightforward. He would just tell you. And while sometimes he would just say straight up, "You're brilliant, you're funny," just as often, he would bring it up in reaction to something that you said or did. If you were talking and you made a point or shared some insight, then he would take a moment and say, "Yeah, whoa, yeah, yes, exactly, you're right. Yes, that is exactly what I was trying to say. That's perfect." Or, "That, I hadn't thought about it like that. That's great." When there were times that he'd reach out to his friends, like me, my wife, our friend Chris from One of Us, Corey and Martin from Double Toasted, and so on, he'd make it clear that part of why he was calling or reaching out was because of how much he valued our insight or our experience or our advice and wanted to know what we thought specifically because we were people whose judgment or advice he trusted and respected. Or he would brag to other people about how cool or smart or funny or amazing you were, especially when he was introducing you to new people and to friends of his, or for that matter, introducing his friends to you. He wanted other people to know just how awesome he thought you were, and believe me, he would not let you get away with false modesty or trying to downplay your accomplishments. He would laugh loudly at your jokes, but never in a way that felt fake or forced. Instead, he was showing that he genuinely thought that those jokes were great, even if you thought they were a little lame. There'd be times when, yes, he would tease you or poke fun, but it was always in gentle ways that were really about your being awesome or possibly even needing to take things up a notch because that would just make things even better. And what was always amazing was that he genuinely liked supporting others and bringing attention to them and making other people feel amazing. One of my most vivid memories of him was being with him at Cantor's Deli, and even as other people were coming up to him and wanting to get autographs or selfies, he wanted to take a moment to just fanboy out because he saw Jesse Heyman, aka the world's greatest extra, and he wanted to take a moment to tell Jesse how awesome he thought Jesse's work was. That kind of validation and approval is incredibly powerful. Having people, especially people that you like, that you respect, or look up to, tell you that they think you're awesome is an incredible feeling. Even if we don't necessarily feel like we deserve it, we still appreciate it. It makes us feel special. Most importantly, though, is that the validation we often appreciate the most comes when people confirm or reinforce what we want to believe about ourselves. When someone reflects back our best selves, especially in ways that feel genuine and sincere, it feels amazing. We may not believe it ourselves, but someone saying, "I see this side of you, and I think you are as incredible as you wish you were," is a feeling that you honestly can't describe. And when you know someone is giving you that compliment sincerely, when they mean it without an agenda or without trying to butter you up or feed your ego, it honestly makes you feel like nothing else in this world. And again, we want to spend time with the people who can make us feel this good. Another important reason why everyone loved spending time with Bert was because he wanted nothing more than to make sure that his friends were having a wonderful time, and there were few things that he enjoyed more than sharing the things that he loved with others. If you were his friend and you were visiting him in LA, then he wanted to show you all the parts of Los Angeles and the surrounding areas that he just thought were amazing or interesting or the coolest. And that could be anything. It might be the tunnel from Back to the Future in Griffith Park, complete with playing the soundtrack on the radio as you're speeding through it. He wanted to show you the Getty Museum or the Warner Brothers backlot tour, or just random things, like the best ice cream joint in the city, the best pizza in Westlake, where he'd spent his first month in LA sleeping in his car, or the places where you could get the best and largest and frankly most amazing pancakes in all of Los Angeles. In fact, that was one of his favorite things. He loved taking his friends out for meals. The man could be a bottomless pit when it came to food. I never met someone who could eat 3 appetizers, 2 entrees, and dessert and then want to go get something else later. But he knew where you could find the most amazing meals, because food and feeding people was very, very definitely his love language. But he also loved sharing and enjoying all of the geeky shit that he collected. The man had so many toys, it was amazing. He had a movie-accurate replica of the Ghostbusters Proton Pack, and oh my sweet Jesus, I wanted one so badly. But what made this so special and such an amazing quality was that he never, ever apologized for loving the things that he loved. He loved them, and he didn't care if other people judged him for it. And by that same token, he would apply the same standard to other people. Did you love something? Then as far as he was concerned, there was no reason to apologize for it or feel like it was dumb or uninteresting. Even if he didn't necessarily share that interest or grok it himself, the fact that you did meant that it was awesome and that you shouldn't feel ashamed about it. And he would be sure to ask you all about it and want to know more. As far as Bert was concerned, there was no such thing as a guilty pleasure. That level of passion and certainty isn't just refreshing, it's inspiring. Most people don't have that sort of conviction or self-assurance. Either they have very little passion or drive in their lives, or they feel the need to apologize for it because they think it's not cool enough or interesting enough to other people. And while that feeling may be relatable, it's not attractive or magnetic. We're all drawn to people with drive, with passion, and with certainty in their lives. And this is partially because of how often we lack that certainty and we admire it in others. But it's also because of how contagious enthusiasm can be. It is really easy to get carried along with somebody else's enthusiasm or joy, and having someone who wants to have a good time and help you have a good time can be an incredible experience. And those two things, passion and the desire to share that passion, combine in potent ways. One of those ways is by finding and sharing new, novel, and interesting activities and ventures, doing things that take you out of your limited zone of experience and expose you to things that you may have always been interested in trying, but couldn't necessarily give yourself permission to enjoy. The other is that they give you permission to not judge yourself or to worry what other people think. You are free to do something as silly, immature, inconsequential, or as childish as you want because you aren't worried about the opinions of others. It gives you permission to do the things that you love just because you want to do them, instead of thinking that you have to be too cool or too above it all to even consider it. Because, straight talk, gentlemen, nobody is too cool, and trying to pretend that you are cuts you off from joy and from happiness. The more that you can legitimately enjoy your passions, love them with abandon, and be willing to share with others, the more magnetic you will be and the happier you will be, which will also help draw people in. Which, now that I think about it, actually makes a great segue to the next reason why Bert was so popular and how you can use this to learn how to be more popular yourself. You may have noticed how often I mention sincerity and being genuine when it comes to being more charismatic and getting people to like you. This is incredibly important because sincerity and authenticity are traits that we absolutely value and look for in others. Yes, we've all heard that old joke. Sincerity, if you can fake that, you've got it made. But the fact of the matter is that authenticity is a quality that makes somebody radiate charisma. We live in a world where we are encouraged to be inauthentic, to curate everything about our lives to make us seem greater, more impressive, cooler than we actually are. In fact, one of the most toxic things about social media is how much it enables and encourages this behavior. We see people living these incredible lives and assume that we need to be as amazing or as perfect in order to measure up. But more often than not, it's just smoke and mirrors. It is astoundingly easy to make your life seem incredible when you only allow people a very limited view. But that is precisely why we value authenticity in people and why it draws us to them. When someone is being authentic, they're being brave enough and trusting us enough to show their genuine selves. We are getting to see who they actually are, not just a carefully crafted persona. And it is impossible to overemphasize how powerful that feeling is. It makes us feel special and trusted. Just as importantly, though, is that it gives us permission to let our guard down, to quit holding up these Potemkin personas and be just as real, just as imperfect, and just as genuine. And that was part of Bert's gift. There was no pretense to him, no trying to create this look at how cool I am persona. He was always sincere and genuine, which in Hollywood is rarer than a ring fit during quarantine. He had no compunctions about sharing how tough things could be, especially for a working actor. When roles seemed to dry up or he wasn't finding work, he would talk about how hard and how frustrating it could be. When his relationship ended because of circumstances completely outside of either of their control, he would talk about how heartbroken he was, about how hard it had been trying to make things work and knowing that although breaking up was probably the right decision, it still really hurt like nothing else. Now, to be clear, this was not emotional vomit. He was not just dumping his feelings out all over the place or inappropriate times. It was simply that he didn't feel like he had to put up a false front or pretend to be something or someone he wasn't. He was going to give you the respect of being real with you. And that willingness to be so real, so vulnerable, demonstrated how much he could trust his friends. And it was also a sign of just how strong and open-hearted he could be, that he was willing to share these difficult moments and feelings with us without shame or without fear of judgment. But it also meant that when he said that he thought you were amazing or smart or funny or insightful, you could take that to the bank. That was exactly how he felt, and he had no problem letting you know that he admired you. That authenticity meant that he also had no compunction, telling his friends that he loved them. He was open with his feelings and encouraged that same openness and vulnerability from the people he invited into his life. He was warm and accepting, modeling the behavior that he wanted from others, and you felt accepted and welcomed when you would reciprocate. That can seem like such a small thing, but it has an incredible impact on your connection with other people. But if we get right down to it, I think there was one trait that, above everything else, explains why Bert was so popular and so well loved by the people around him and in his life. If there was one thing that you could say about Bert, is that he was relentlessly positive, no matter how hard things could be. And there were times that it was really hard. He was optimistic and upbeat and looking on the bright side of things. Now, don't get me wrong. This did not mean that he was being Pollyanna and denying reality, or that he had delusions of grandeur. It was simply that he didn't let the world break him or grind him down or make him believe that things were impossible or so bleak that he couldn't improve. He believed that the best was always still possible and that everything could and would still turn out for the better. When he hit a dry spell and it seemed like he couldn't get roles to save his life, his attitude was always the same. Yeah, it's frustrating. Yeah, it absolutely sucked. And there were days that it could be incredibly goddamn hard and really demoralizing to the point of feeling like, is this it? Is this over? But he knew his worth. He trusted in his talent. And he believed with his entire being that by putting in the work, putting himself out there and keeping at it, working as hard as he could, that when opportunities came around, and they would again, he would be in the perfect position to take full advantage of them. That same outlook applied to times when he was down to his last 20 bucks. He'd been there before, he'd struggled before, but he knew that he could dig himself out. It just required hard work and perseverance, and he would get there. And that's exactly what happened. That positive attitude, yeah, this blows, but with hard work and patience, I'll pull out of this spiral, gave him the strength and the resilience to keep going through even the hardest times. But that's also why he had so many people in his corner rooting for him and cheering him on. The attitude that you maintain and give off affects not only you, but the people around you. Negative people drain the energy out of the room, leaving everyone around them feeling worse off than before. There is nothing more tedious or frustrating or exhausting than dealing with someone whose attitude is, this is awful, there's nothing to be done, and everyone should just give up now. Even if you were in a good mood, dealing with people with that attitude leaves you feeling exhausted and worn out. Having that positive attitude, wanting the best for others, having faith in yourself, believing that failures are temporary, that setbacks can be overcome, and that the key to success was to put yourself in the position where you could maximize your opportunities has the exact opposite effect. Just as you can get carried away by people's joy and enthusiasm, you can get an emotional boost from people with positive attitudes. It is very easy to come away from spending time with them and feeling that, yeah, they're right. This is just a temporary thing. I can do better. That feeling is incredible. Knowing that somebody believes in you and that being around them makes you feel like you can do so much better makes you want to have them in your life all the time. Having people who expect the best from you and encourage it from you in affirming and positive ways, and who give themselves that same sense of hope and optimism is profoundly rewarding. It inspires you to do more, to strive for more, and it makes you want to achieve more because you want to prove them right and encourage them to succeed too. And at the end of the day, that was ultimately Bert's gift. He brought value to people's lives because he made people feel incredible. He was a source of joy, of fun, of confidence and sincerity, and the world was brighter when he was around. And since he's no longer with us, then I think the best thing would be for more people to learn that from him and to bring that same happiness and positive value to their lives and to the lives of people that they care about. And honestly, I can't think of a better tribute to him. That's going to do it for this episode. That was honestly kind of rough, so thank you for being here. But while you're here, I've got some news. I'm working on a new project for the channel, talking about the lessons in love, relationships, and manhood that we can learn from movies, TV shows, even comics and games. So if you've got a TV show or a movie that you would like to see me talk about or break down, be sure to share that in the comments. We're probably going to be launching it in the new year, so make sure that you subscribe and you hit that bell to get notifications so you don't miss it when the first episode goes up. Meanwhile, if you're ready to build the social skills to find your perfect partner, then check out my book, New Game Plus, the Geek's Guide to Love, Sex, and Dating. This is the instruction manual that you have always been wanting when it comes to dating. It is the A to Z guide for learning how to be a dating Jedi and to find the relationship that you have always wanted, whether it is for that night or for a lifetime. Links to buy it are in the show notes, so go check it out. And if you do check it out, or any of my other books for that matter, please be sure to rate and review it on Amazon and on Goodreads. It's a huge, huge help to me. Now, if you're digging the series, you're digging the videos, you already know what to do. This is not your first time on YouTube. Come on, you know how this works. Hit the thumbs up, share it around with your friends on social media, leave a like and a comment to engage the algorithm. That's also a really, really big help. But if you are really enjoying these videos, if you feel like you're getting a lot out of it, you're finding that it's helping you, and you want to help support the channel and in the process help fund awesome new projects and things like, my hiring an editor and an art director, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/drnerdlove. Even $1 is a huge, huge help. It covers hosting, covers equipment costs, and it's like I'm always saying, I can't do this without the support of my patrons. So whether you are brand new or you've been with me from the beginning, I cannot thank you enough for all that you have done. Meanwhile, follow me on Twitter at @DrNerdLove. Join the private Facebook group NerdLove Academy at facebook.com/groups/DrNerdLove. And as always, hit that logo to subscribe, check out my other videos, and I will see you here next time with more about love, sex, and dating. Thanks for watching.